Hey, what up? It's Brad with Home Love Construction, and in this video, I want to answer the question from my perspective on whether construction costs are going to go up in the next decade or down in the next decade. And I want to kind of attack this from a couple different angles, but before I do, I would please ask you if you could subscribe to this channel. It does help me out quite a bit. And it basically, the goal here, like what we're doing, is this is the repository of information. This is the library for remodeling and custom home building for homeowners, not for contractors, not for anybody else, for homeowners. Like, this is what you need to know. This is the information you need, okay? So hit the subscribe button below so we can reach more people, gather more information from the projects we do as a result, and come back and share them with you. So here's the question. Construction prices next decade, up or down? So here's the reason that this is actually worth talking about is there are some things that could bring construction costs way, way down. And I'll kind of list through them and talk about whether I think they're real or not. So the first thing is AI and robotization of construction, like robots doing construction. So a lot of people are like, you know, low dollar things are going to be the first thing that's replaced by robots and AI, right? Like you see that with cashiers, you see it with, you know, people answering the phone, like ChatGPT, writing things for people, right? Like it seems like it might be that. But what I'm noticing is that the highest dollar value things are being replaced, like lawyers, doctors. I mean, I asked ChatGPT the other day what I could do to help my patellar tendonitis, and it gave me some great recommendations, and it's working. So I'm like, dude, I don't need to go see a doctor. Like I went and saw a doctor just for a physical exam to make sure the tendon's not torn. And then I was like, I don't need you to tell me what I need to do. I'm gonna go ask ChatGPT. Like I'm gonna go ask the internet what to do. And he gave me some great recommendations. I'm pounding the vitamin C, pounding the zinc, doing some like mobilization exercises, and it feels great super fast. So anyways, the construction field is at a minimum, 20 to 30 years out, probably more like 50 to 100 years out from having robots actually come in and do work on a construction site. And here's why. Construction, like robots work well in a clean, unusual environment, like a clean, standard, uniform environment. If you've ever been to a construction site, there is nothing uniform about a construction site. If you're talking about a renovation, especially where you've got a house and you're putting it back together, there's nothing uniform about that because humans built it. Computers don't build houses right now. So until a computer builds a house to start, doing a renovation of the house with a computer is gonna be a monumental challenge. I mean, it's gonna have to be able to account for so many different things just to be able to move effectively through a construction site. So that's the big thing here is I cannot see how there's going to be robotization of the construction industry for decades. So what that means is people's demand for this thing is going to continue to go up, and the people who are there, because you got to think with less people are coming into construction because there's other fields soaking up the talent, right? So like who gets a construction job these days, right? Like high school dropouts, people who you know, are down on their luck, people who need money real quick. Like that's who you think of as like, that's who gets into construction, right? Now at Home Love Construction, we work to find the people who don't fit those molds, who are like actually craftsmen and really love what they do. But the general construction industry is people who are, like I described, down on their luck, don't have any other options, I'll just go do construction, whatever. There are fewer people willing to do that. So the bright ones are really starting to shine more. But the baseline question here is, are prices gonna go up or down? Well, if you think about the robotization thing, and you think about fewer people coming into the workforce, the robots aren't coming in, and there's fewer people coming in to do the work. That's only a recipe for one thing, and it's prices increasing. And by the way, demand is continuing to increase, especially on the renovation side, because 50 years ago, if you wanted to repaint your home, you and your uncle would get together and you'd spend the week painting your home. People don't tend to do that these days. It's just not a social norm that you would paint your own house. Some people do, don't get me wrong. A lot of people would paint their own house. And if that's you, awesome. I mean, I actually wouldn't. I'm a contractor. I would just hire my painter to come do it. Just that's me personally. But I know the guy. So because fewer people are doing it, demand's going up, there's going to be an increase in price due to this factor alone of robots not coming in fast enough, people exiting the industry. You know, construction, this is an interesting fun fact that I researched a couple of years ago, and I've looked at it this year, and it's getting more strong as a trend, is construction is one of the only fields, like, you know, there's different fields of employment, like, you know, programming, website building, construction, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. Construction is the only, it's one of like 3 fields with a negative growth rate compared to the growth of the population of the United States. Like, the proportion of people who are in construction compared to the overall population is shrinking, and a lot of other sectors it's growing. So all that is just going to drive prices up. I mean, it's so simple to see when you look at all the different factors. There's not a single factor around people or employment that's going to drive the cost of construction down. Nothing, even the minimum wage. In the state of Florida, the minimum wage is mandated to be $15 an hour by, I think it's 2025 or 2026 or something like that. Even if you look at that, the guys that used to feel great about making 25 an hour because they were double or triple, you know, much higher than minimum wage. Now they're gonna be like, well, I'm barely higher than the minimum wage guy. You gotta give me 30 an hour now. So all those people are now gonna be ratcheting up a little bit because the minimum wage is coming up. Prices are going to continue to explode out the roof as they have been. And it's been held off a little bit from the new construction, but it's going to start affecting the new construction. And the good thing is, if you're a homeowner, it's going to drive the price of your house up, because as new construction costs rise, the value, not the price, the value of an existing home goes up. So it's going to bring house prices up with it. So it's a good thing for you as a homeowner. Now, let's hit the second piece, right? Okay, so we talked about the robotization and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about the materials, all right? So on the materials side, there is actually an opportunity for AI and robots to decrease prices. This actually could happen, and I think is more likely to happen in the next decade than not. So right now, if you look at, let's take a truss manufacturing facility, for example. If you were to go to like a big one near where I live is called Tibbetts Lumber. If you were to go to their truss plant and actually just watch what they do, like you just stood there and looked at it, what you would see is they have these big tables, these big like assembly line type tables that are like, I think they're covered in metal so that the wood slides on it really nicely. And there's people with nail guns and plates walking around, nailing this stuff together with hammers. All the work is being done by people. There's a bunch of bodies in that shop. Hammering, nailing, putting the plates on, boom, moving wood. It's all done by humans, right? There is no reason, because in a truss manufacturing facility, that can be a uniform environment. You can actually have a machine that assembles the truss, boom, 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 puts the nail plates on, ships it off. That should and will be done by robots in the near future. There's just no reason not to. Now, if you take that combined with the collection of raw materials. So like if you take wood, for example, getting a tree from, I don't know, South Georgia into Florida in order for it to be milled or whatever, that cost should also be coming down. Transportation is cheaper as we get more efficient with cars and stuff like that. And you get more efficient with your timing, and logistics gets better and better as time goes on. So because that's the case, material prices actually will decline. And I'm not saying that they'll decline outright, like you're not going to see lumber for, you know, piece of plywood for 40 bucks this week and 30 bucks next year. But what you will see is that $40 piece of plywood will continue to be $40 as everything else around it climbs in price due to just general inflation, right? Things tend to go up in price over time. You're gonna see those materials stick around the same price or just drift slowly, very gently higher. We've already had a huge adjustment up in material prices. That I think is actually gonna hang about for quite a while. You're gonna see the labor go through the roof and the materials stay relatively flat. So that said, it is going to result in a little bit of a decrease, but right now, in the grand scheme of things, labor is about 60 to 70% of the cost of construction. Materials is about 30 to 40% the cost of construction. In most of our projects at Home Love, it's about 30% is the materials versus 70% labor. I don't know why, that's just the way it tends to work out for our projects. Maybe we just employ skilled people. But that said, I think you're gonna see a shift to where 90% of your cost is labor and 10% is materials. I think you're actually gonna see that shift so drastically, and the tradespeople are going to have all the leverage, and the material suppliers are actually going to start decreasing in leverage. And that's a huge shift to what you've had for the past 100, 200, 300 years. The people who give you the materials always had all the leverage. They're like, if they don't sell to you, you are screwed. But what it's gonna become is the people who are doing the work, they're gonna become the more valuable commodity versus the materials. And it's gonna be a totally different scene. It's gonna be very uncomfortable for people, especially material suppliers. And there's gonna be material suppliers who are gonna go out of business. There's gonna be big opportunities to buy material supply companies as this winds up happening, because they're not gonna know how to manage it and navigate it. So that's the second thing that is gonna drive construction prices. They'll go higher, but on the material side, I think they'll stay flat, which will actually make them lower due to inflation. Okay, so the third major factor, so we talked about kind of the people thing, we talked about the materials thing. The third thing, which is something that no one thinks about, literally no. I think I may actually be the only person in construction who's thinking about this, is, and bear with me here because I'm gonna have to define I wanna be very clear on the definition of this word that I'm using, but the technology of construction is starting to get lost. And when I say technology, I don't mean like a computer or a camera or anything like that. When I say technology, I mean technology used to mean a body of knowledge about a precise way to do something, right? Like a technology of cutting hair, or a technology of woodworking, or a technology of doing drywall. The technology of the construction trades is starting to get a bit lost, especially around the things where there's not trade schools. So the framing, the concrete especially, my God, the decrease in concrete standards is just mind-boggling. You know, you talk about like flooring insulation, tiling, doing woodworking of trim and stuff like that, cabinets, countertops, those things that aren't being taught or codified, you're starting to see a decline in those things. And that is going to continue unless somebody actually steps in, like what we're trying to do here at Home Love Construction and are successfully doing, and actually capturing how you do it successfully. The other thing that's being lost is the art of managing construction projects. And because these two things are starting to dwindle a bit, that in itself is going to cause a massive increase in prices, because the people who successfully can capture and codify it and know how to do things. It's like, if you think about like a tailor, right? So like a tailor, it used to be everybody knows how to tailor their own clothes. Like your mom would just do it, right? But now there are very few people who actually know how to tailor clothes well, so they can command a much higher price. You're gonna see the same thing in construction. There's gonna be very few people who are gonna know how to set the trusses for a house, how to frame, you know, a drop ceiling, how to actually build an exterior wall the right way. And even things as simple as how to read blueprints is starting to break down a little bit. And you just don't see it being transferred out and really communicated out into newer generations of construction people. Not to mention there's very few people coming into the field. So all that, and by the way, I don't mean for this to be doom and gloom. There is definitely a happy ending here, and there's huge, massive opportunities for anyone who steps foot in the space. You can be totally mediocre right now and absolutely crush it in construction. I mean, you can just hand over fist be doing so well, even just being mediocre, okay? So it's not a bad thing necessarily if you're willing to step in and help. But the overall scene is you're gonna see, I would predict between 2023 and probably 2029, the next 6 years, in that amount of time, I would predict that construction prices will increase by at least 50%. Anywhere from 50 to 75%, I would say that's what I would predict. Meanwhile, you'll see inflation, you know, the base cost of living will probably go up by like 10 to 15% over that time. Construction will be 50 to 70% higher in cost by the time 2029 and 2030 roll around. So you can bookmark that, you can timestamp it, and that's what I predict is going to happen in the construction industry. Now, if you agree leave a comment. If you disagree, leave 3 comments about why you disagree. But in all seriousness, please do leave a comment. Let me know. Do you agree with these things? Do you disagree with them? What's your thought? Are construction prices going up or down? Are you in construction? Do you want to get into construction? Okay, let me know these things. I really would like to hear from you. And if you got any value out of this video at all, please hit the subscribe button below. This is kind of morphed into a little bit of a manifesto on what I think is going to happen with construction prices over the next decade. But I've been wanting to make a video like this for a really long time because I see this happening every day. It's like so obvious to me as I see people. I mean, I know a block mason who used to do great work and now he's old and is kind of getting a bit crippled and he can't do block work anymore. So it's like, okay, just that's a very small example, but boom, okay, that guy's out. He's out of the industry. There's one less guy doing block now. And as I'm seeing that happen, I'm like, man, nobody's saying anything about this, about how people are just falling off left and right and there's no one coming in to replace them. So I really have wanted to make this video a long time, and thank you for watching it. I do appreciate it. If you got any value at all, hit the subscribe button below, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next vid. Peace.